Something massive is happening right now in Japan's elder care industry, but it's happening so quietly you could almost miss it. Away from all the headlines, a whole sector is being completely transformed by some very powerful, very quiet players. We're going to dig into how an entire industry of small, local businesses is being reforged into a market of giants.
And it all really kicks off with this one central mystery. Why are Japan's biggest, most well-known care companies suddenly vanishing from the stock market? One by one, these household names are being bought up and taken private. So, who's buying them, and more importantly, why? Well, to get the motive, you have to follow the money.
And there is a lot of money. Japan's yearly market for care services is now worth over 11 trillion yen. That's more than 70 billion US dollars, and most of it is funded by public insurance. With Japan's aging population, this huge, stable market is only going to get bigger. It's basically the perfect target for investors, but it also happens to be facing a massive crisis.
Yeah, it's what you'd call a perfect storm. On one side, you have demand just exploding, with the number of people over 75 absolutely skyrocketing. But on the other side, the supply is crumbling. See, the industry has always been made up of thousands of small family-run businesses, and now they're getting hit with chronic labor shortages and a succession crisis. The founders are retiring and there's nobody to take the reins. This huge gap between soaring demand and failing supply, well, that created a once-in-a-generation opportunity.
And that brings us to the first part of our story, the arrival of some new, very powerful buyers who looked at this crisis not as a problem, but as a historic chance to get in the game.
The first wave of these buyers started showing up around 2015. At first, it was major corporations from totally different industries. You had insurance giants like SOMPO jumping in. You had security firms like Seacom, even education companies like Gakkan. They all saw a chance to get a piece of a stable, growing market by just buying up existing care businesses.
But while these big public companies were making all the headlines, an even more powerful force was moving in the shadows. And these are the players who are really reshaping the industry today. They're the ones taking these companies private. We're going to call them the silent giants. So who are these silent giants? Well, they're private equity funds, or PE funds. Their business model is actually pretty simple. Think of them like expert house flippers, but for entire companies. They use investors' money to buy a company, take it private, spend a few years fixing it up and making it more profitable, away from the glare of the stock market, and then sell it later for a huge profit. And for a fragmented industry like Japan's care sector, they have a very specific playbook. And that brings us to the core strategy these funds are using to basically consolidate the entire industry. This isn't random. It's a systematic, highly effective approach for building empires from scratch. The strategy is called buy and build. It's a technique that's tailor-made for markets just like eldercare, where you have a handful of big players and just thousands of little independent operators. The whole goal is to systematically roll up all those small pieces into one dominant, super efficient machine. Here's how it works. First, they acquire a solid, decent-sized company to use as a platform. That's their foundation. Then, they start buying up smaller competitors and literally bolt them on to the platform. The magic is in the next step, integration. They centralize all the boring stuff like HR, accounting, IT, to slash costs and boost efficiency across the board. And in just a few years, what was a collection of small businesses is transformed into a single, profitable giant that's ready to be sold off. All right, so enough with the theory. Let's see this playbook in action with a couple of real-world case studies that have completely remade the top of Japan's care industry.
First up, Nichii Gakkan. This was the largest company in the entire sector. A real sprawling enterprise with businesses in everything from care and medical admin to, believe it or not, English schools. And in 2020, it became the target of a major PE fund.
So in 2020, the US-based fund Bain Capital swoops in, buys Nichii Gakkan, and takes it private. Right away, they start streamlining the company. They sell off all the distracting side businesses, like those English schools, to focus 100% on care and medical. And then, just 3 years later, they sell the new, leaner, much more profitable company to Nippon Life Insurance for 210 billion yen. They nearly doubled their investment.
I mean, the impact was just crystal clear. By going private, Nichii Gakkan was able to completely transform itself. It got rid of all its distractions, focused on its core business, and its operating profit just exploded, from 12 to 20 billion yen in 3 short years. Going private was absolutely the key, because it let them make tough decisions really, really fast.
And this quote right here, it gets to the heart of why they do it. When you're a public company, you're under constant pressure from shareholders to deliver short-term profits, quarter after quarter, and that makes deep, painful reforms almost impossible. By going private, Bain Capital could basically perform surgery on the business without having to worry about the daily ups and downs of the stock market.
Okay, so our second case study is even more ambitious. This isn't about fixing one company. This is about building a brand new giant from scratch by smashing two industry leaders together. And the architect this time is another major PE fund, MBK Partners.
What MBK Partners did here was just a masterclass in the buy and build strategy. In 2021, they bought Tsugui, a leader in home-based care. Then, in 2023, they added Soyokaze, a giant in facility-based care, like nursing homes. See, they weren't just buying companies, they were buying complementary puzzle pieces.
Their grand strategy? To build an end-to-end mega platform. By combining home care with facility care, one single company can now serve a person through their entire aging journey. From the first home visits to short-term stays after a hospital visit, all the way to long-term nursing home care. It creates this incredibly powerful and sticky business model. Once a customer is in, they never have to leave.
So, after all of these buyouts and all this strategic maneuvering, what does the new landscape of Japan's care industry actually look like? Who are the new power players calling the shots?
Well, the scale of these new giants is just immense. This is no longer a scattered field of small businesses. It's now basically an oligopoly, dominated by a handful of titans like Nichii Gakkan and SOMPO, each pulling in revenues well over 100 billion yen a year.
This is the new power structure. And you start to notice a pattern, right? Most of them are now backed by these massive pools of capital, either from huge insurance companies like SOMPO and Nippon Life, or from the private equity funds that built giants like the Tsugui/Soyokaze platform from the ground up. These are the new faces of care in Japan. The transformation is pretty much complete. That old world of small, local, independent care providers is fading away. And in its place, we have a market dominated by just a few massive, well-capitalized corporations. This is the new reality.
And all of this leaves us with one final, really critical question. All this consolidation promises some good things: more efficiency, better technology, maybe more stable careers for caregivers. But what might be lost in the process? As these giants standardize everything to maximize efficiency, is there still room for that personalized, community-based care that smaller providers were so good at? So the big question now is, will the future of care in Japan just be more efficient, or will it simply become more uniform? That's what we have to watch as these silent giants continue to reshape our world.